So how do you rob the most famous museum in the world? In broad daylight? Well, today we're going to break down the absolutely audacious 2025 heist at the Louvre. It's a crime that unfolded faster than you can brew a pot of coffee, and it left an entire nation just reeling. Let's just start with the price tag, because it's a big one. 88 million euros. That's the estimated value of the French crown jewels that were snatched. But as we're about to see, their real value, their historical value, well, that was completely and totally priceless. And this is the part that is just mind-blowing. The thieves were in and they were out in under 8 minutes. This wasn't some quiet, late-night job. No, this was a lightning raid, smack in the middle of a busy afternoon, with tourists just wandering around quarters away. Unbelievable. The fallout was immediate, and it went all the way to the top. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, he didn't mince words. He called it exactly what it was for the entire country, a national humiliation. This wasn't just a robbery, you see. It was a deep, deep blow to France's cultural pride. Okay, so let's dive into that immediate aftermath. I mean, the heist sent shockwaves, not just through Paris, but really all around the globe. The scene at the museum, it was just one of pure disbelief, anger, and a frantic scramble for some answers. The whole thing just spiraled into a massive national crisis. The historic Galerie d'Apollon, it was shuttered indefinitely. The government actually had to deploy soldiers to patrol the museum's entrance. Can you imagine that sight? The global media, of course, had an absolute field day. And while Paris fast-tracked 50 million euros for security upgrades, the Louvre's own director was being grilled by a Senate committee, having to explain how this absolute disaster could have ever happened. So the question is, how on earth did they pull it off? Let's rewind the clock. It's 2:47 p.m. on that fateful afternoon. Let's walk through this thing. The precision, it's like something out of a movie. It is just staggering. Just look at this timeline. At 2:47 p.m., they're going up to the window on a lift. A minute later, just 60 seconds later, they are inside the gallery. They spend less than 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 58 seconds to be exact, ransacking the cases. And by 2:52 p.m., they've rappelled down and completely vanished into the Paris traffic on motorbikes. It is terrifyingly efficient. Their 4-stage plan was just a masterclass in criminal efficiency. So, the approach. They posed as construction workers in a stolen truck, which let them blend right in with all the renovations going on. The breach? Just brute force, a crowbar against an unsecured window. The grab? Pure speed. Using battery-powered angle grinders, sparks flying everywhere. And the escape? Pure audacity. A quick rappel down the side and a high-speed getaway on bikes. So, what did they actually take? You have to understand, these weren't just a bunch of shiny, valuable gems. No, these were irreplaceable artifacts. They were actual, tangible symbols of French history that told the story of emperors and kings and queens. I mean, the hall reads like a who's who of French royalty. A necklace that Napoleon himself gifted to his empress, a tiara worn by Empress Eugenie, the honest-to-goodness crown of Louis XV. Stealing these, it wasn't just theft, it was like ripping pages straight out of a history book. And the crime scene itself, it was a work of art. The Galerie d'Apollon, designed under Louis XIV, the Sun King himself, it was built to be this breathtaking display of French power and grandeur, and its whole purpose was to share this heritage openly with the public, which, in a really tragic twist of irony, became its greatest vulnerability. So all of this brings us to the biggest question of all, right? How was this even possible? We're talking about the Louvre, arguably the most famous and you'd think most protected museum on the entire planet. Well, the answer is just a jaw-dropping list of failures. There was a known blind spot in the external cameras that bureaucracy had just delayed fixing. The window was unsecured, and the internal surveillance password? You can't make this up. It was Louvre. To top it all off, the alarms only went off after the glass was already smashed. It wasn't one mistake. It was a total systemic breakdown. It's the nightmare scenario for any museum. But for all their slick planning, the thieves made one huge mistake. In their rush to get away, one of them dropped the massive 2-pound crown of Empress Eugenie. It just tumbled down onto the cobblestones below, leaving behind the one piece of critical forensic evidence that would unravel their entire operation. And that single mistake, that dropped crown, it kicked off one of Europe's largest and most intense manhunts. The police now had fingerprints, they had DNA, and the race was on. And you know what? The police response was incredibly fast. The heist happens on October 19th. Just 1 week later, the first two suspects are in custody. By the end of November, the entire core team that pulled off the heist had been arrested. It was a really dramatic and decisive operation. So who were these guys? Well, the authorities rounded up 7 people in total. You had a core team of 4 who actually did the robbery, and then 3 others who provided all the logistics and support. The Interior Minister called them an experienced crew, not amateurs, which only makes those security lapses at the Louvre seem even more glaring, doesn't it?
But here's the thing. Even with the gang in custody, this story was far from over. In fact, you could say the most painful chapter of this whole saga was really just beginning.
Because this is the hard truth of it all. The jewels are gone. They are still missing, and authorities are pretty much certain they were broken apart, dismantled, and sold off on the black market within days, maybe even hours. Those incredible, tangible pieces of history. They've been reduced to scattered gems, lost to the world forever. And this quote from the Louvre's director, Laurence Decars, it just captures the whole problem perfectly. She testified, "We balanced accessibility with protection. Today, that equilibrium shattered like our cases." Wow. It just perfectly frames the central dilemma that every single cultural institution in the world is now grappling with. Which leaves all of us with this final, really difficult question. See, the thieves stole more than just gems. They stole our sense of security, our sense of openness. And so we're all left to wonder, in our mission to protect our shared heritage, how do we build stronger walls without turning our museums into fortresses? How do we fortify history without putting it behind a cage, forever out of reach of the very people it belongs to?